Hello, my name is Lewis and welcome to Gathering the Magic. Today we're looking at the top 10 best Bant commanders in MTG. Starting off this list we've got Rubinia, Soulsinger. Originally released in Legends, this 2/3 fairy says you may choose not to untap Rubinia during your untap step, and you can tap to gain control of target creature for as long as you control Rubinia and it remains tapped. For a deck like this we're really heavily leaning into all of that theft. As well as Rubinia stealing a target creature, we're popping in many more cards to steal other creatures and permanents. Most of these cards will have ETB triggers, so we'll add in all of those big bad blue boys that can ETB as a copy of previous theft creature and really take control of the board. This deck tends to work even better if you lean into that control. Have all of the horrible cards that will prevent your opponents from attacking you, make them pay the one, and of course elk your opponents into oblivion. Bant is the perfect colour combination to really grind your opponent's gears, so you can really make it easy to thieve, control and destroy to get that victory royale. This is a commander that can really put the anger into your opponents, so why don't we now look at another one with a bit more Bant?
Why are you the way that you are?
Before we get into number 9, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe down below for all things MTG. Subscribing is completely free to do and it helps our channel grow and grow. We've also just started a channel membership, so become a prickly pal today and help support the channel. Next up on this Bant list is Razoriq of the Many. From Shards of Alara, this 3/3 human knight has exalted, and whenever a creature you control attacks alone, it gains double strike until end of turn. This deck is really going to focus on that exalted. Exalted says whenever a creature you control attacks alone, that creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So the more cards we pack with that exalted mechanic, we're not only getting more temporary +1/+1 counters on it, but there are also cards that give that lone attacker lifelink, extra combat phases and more. Whether it's Razoriq or another creature, we may also want to go Voltron with that creature, so packing in all of those staple equipment is never a bad idea, especially with all of those devilish swords of cards. Here's where we'll throw in nice and early the iconic Gathering the Magic card of the deck award, and that is going to Silent Arbiter. We want to be attacking alone to benefit from that exalted mechanic, so let's make sure our opponents can only block with one creature. If we're beefing up Razoriq and even finding ways to make it unblockable or have menace, then you're commander damaging your opponents all the way back to the Shadow Realm. For the next Bant commander we have Rune of the Hidden Realm. From Commander 13, this 4/4 Rhino Soldier with Vigilance and Trample says you can pay 2 and tap to exile another target creature. Return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. For this Rune deck we're going blinking crazy, packing in every blink card we can think of. Cards that will give us some card draw, cards that will ramp us, and cards to create us a load of creatures. And putting in creatures like Soul Herder are key, gaining even more from those exile triggers and beefing up Soul Herder to eventually get a super strong creature. That Rune ability is so key from a defensive standpoint too. Facing an opponent with a nasty strong commander or creature, tap Rune. Blink it onto the field on the next end step to avoid any damage it may bring. Finally, getting in all of those cards like Panharmonicon are essential. We're building a deck revolved around those ETB triggering creatures, so why just have one ETB trigger when we can have 2? You love to see it, you love to see it.
Oh, okay, I see what you did there.
Coming in at number 7 we have Estrid the Masked. From Commander 2018, this legendary planeswalker for +2 can untap each enchanted permanent you control. You can -1 to create a white aura enchantment token named Mask attached to another permanent. The token has enchanted permanent has totem armor. And the ult -7 says put the top 7 cards of your library into your graveyard. Return all non-aura enchantment cards from your graveyard to the field, then do the same for aura cards. For this deck we're going aura and enchantment crazy. We really want to do everything we can to get that ult trigger going, so we're adding in every aura and non-aura enchantment card going to get the most value when that ult ability eventually happens. Get in all of the many cards to cheapen the cost of playing those enchantments, and even throw in those creatures and other enchantments that will trigger when we're casting all of those enchantments. Finally, we have an infinite mana and loyalty counter play with the Chain Veil. If we have the mana to do so, activate Estrid's -2 to create Mask, attaching to the Chain Veil. Activate the Chain Veil so you can activate Estrid again, +2 to untap all of those enchanted permanents, then replay again and again to go mana and loyalty counter positive, get the win and send your opponents home unhappy. I think I may have said enchantment too many times in the last minute or so. Just missing out on the top half we have Amareth the Lustrous. From Commander Legends, this flying 6/6 dragon says whenever another permanent ETB is under your control, look at the top card of your library. If it shares a card type with that permanent, you may reveal a card and put it into your hand. A popular commander because there are so many ways to go. Maybe you want that constant permanent to be an enchantment, packing all of the millions of enchantments, so when an enchantment ETBs, you can reveal a card, hope it's an enchantment, and gain all of that card advantage. The average Amareth deck that focuses solely on enchantments has them coming out of their ears. Of course, the same can be said for any card type. You could go artifact heavy, pack your deck with millions of artifacts, this will then spill over into artifact creatures too, so the odds of drawing an artifact will be huge. Finally, if you are heading in the enchantment route, have that combination of Enchanted Evening and Ajani's Chosen. Have Ajani's Chosen on the field, cast Enchanted Evening, Ajani triggers creating your 2/2 cat token. The now enchantment cat token hits the field, triggering Ajani's Chosen, and you have an infinite army of cats. Amareth is a great commander and a very cheap one to buy, so maybe it's time we make an Amareth budget brew. Next on the list we have Derevi, Imperial Tactician. Another one from that Commander 13 set, this 2/3 Flying Bird Wizard says whenever Derevi ETBs or a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may tap or untap target permanent, and you can pay 1 and Bant to put Derevi onto the field from the command zone. Another commander with options aplenty, one of them being that pod strategy. Sacrifice your own creatures to get out bigger, badder beasts. Use those new creatures to either control the board or attack, and then untap your army or tap down more of your opponent's creatures. If the pod life isn't for you, then we can go flying. Build a bird tribal theme. The more we have in the air, the less likely your opponents will be able to be to block, and the more triggers we'll be able to get from Derevi. Finally, Derevi is so popular because of that second ability. That ability isn't subject to command attacks, so you can keep casting it from the command zone for 1 and Bant all game long. And when you're activating that ability, you're not casting it as a spell, so it can't be countered by something that counters only spells. As we know, commanders that avoid command attacks are always very, very popular. Just missing out on the top 3 we have Galea, Kindler of Hope. From the AFR commander set, this 4/4 Elf Knight with Vigilance says you may look at the top card of your library anytime, and you may cast aura and equipment spells from the top of your library. When you cast an equipment spell this way, you may attach that equipment to target creature you control. So as expected, this deck is all about those aura and equipment. Especially as it has Vigilance, Galea can lean heavily into that Voltron theme. Gather up all of the aura and equipment we can find, stack it onto Galea and go swinging at all of your opponents. It can be such an easy commander to protect too, as you have not only all of that staple equipment like Swiftfoot Boots to protect, and many of those totem armor loving auras that will bite the dust first instead of your commander. Throw in all of that equipment that will draw you cards, fetch out lands, and just boost up your creature's power level so quick that soon it'll be over level 9000 and wipe out your opponents before they can even Teferi's protection themselves out of the game. Taking the bronze medal spot we have Arcades the Strategist. From the Core 19 set, this 3/5 Flying Vigilant Elder Dragon says when a creature with Defender ETBs, draw a card. And each creature you control with Defender assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power, and it can attack as though it didn't have Defender. For a deck like this, one of the most common routes to go is Wall Tribal. There are so many walls within Magic, all with Defender, and are widely known for having little to no power with a much higher toughness. Another positive to Wall Tribal is that they usually have their own ETB trigger, so as well as drawing a card from Arcades, we could be drawing more cards, returning enemies' creatures to their hand, and much more. If we're wanting to branch out from walls, there are a ton of creatures that have Defender, and again, more often than not with Defender, you can be sure that it's going to come with that high toughness. There are a few defenders with flying too, so get them in, or just to be evil, make sure all of your creatures have flying, and that toughness damage will be knocking out your opponents in no time at all. Boy, do I wish Charax had Defender. Runner-up and the second best bank commander is Tuvasa the Sunlit. From Commander 18, this 1/1 Merfolk Shaman gets +1/+1 for each enchantment you control, and whenever you cast your first enchantment spell each turn, draw a card. Another Bant commander that relies heavily on those enchantments, throw in all of those enchantment loving creatures, cards that would benefit from enchantments being played, especially with so many in those Bant colours that draw you cards when they're played. This is an engine that really doesn't take long to get going, and once it does, it can be very hard to stop. Having cards like Leyline of Anticipation are key too. Tuvasa says when you first cast an enchantment spell each turn. So if we have ways to flash them out on our opponent's turn, then that's 3 times more value on one commander rotation, and so much card draw you'll be really in hand to control the board and the game. A powerful commander that has deservedly won many a game in my MTG circle, which is why more often than not it does become the target when it hits the field. Winner and the best Bant commander in MTG, we have Tulane, Teller of Tales. From Eldraine, this 2/4 human Vigilant Druid says whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card, then you may put a land from your hand onto the field, and pay 3 and tap to return target creature you control to its owner's hand. We're going creature heavy here, pack in many of those 1-drop creatures, ones that can either get you some card draw advantage, or those mana dogs are really key. We're not only drawing a card off Tulane to hopefully ramp with some of those hand-based lands, but if we whiff, we're at least getting that ramp from all of those tiny creatures. Getting some creatures like Tatiova that will benefit even after those lands have been played. Play a creature, play a land triggers, draw again. That is some tasty value. Lastly, why not lean into that beloved Blink strategy? Get these creatures hitting the board over and over again, Tulane will keep triggering, drawing you through your deck, getting out all of that ramp, and eventually get to some end game level creatures that can see off your opponents for the win. A very powerful commander, and another showcase into how insanely powerful the Eldraine set was. There we have it, that is the list. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for all things MTG. Check out our link tree in the description below for all of our social media and affiliate links. For now though, I'm all tapped out, so I'll see you in the next video.